Hello and welcome to the Low-Code Café. This is Wednesday, October 29th, 2025, and this is episode number 191, where we're going to discover what's possible by doing a tour of listing controls. So everything that you can do with listings, or lots of it anyway. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plant an App. This is a event, the Low-Code Cafe. We do it the last Wednesday of every month. That's the plan anyway. So it's a monthly opportunity for us to talk about what's going on with Plant an App, and we dedicate the biggest piece of this to showing what you can do with Plant an App. These are recorded and put on YouTube. You can get to them at youtube.com/plantanap and sign up and subscribe to the Low-Code Cafe channel. Today we'll be running this agenda where I'll talk a little bit about the from the trenches of support and then go on to doing some hands-on low coding, which is all about what's going on with the settings tab of listings. As I mentioned, we usually present these the last Wednesday of each month, but next month in the United States, that's right around Thanksgiving, so we're advancing it a week or so. So November 19th will be our date for our next live presentation. Okay, from the trenches of support, we'll really talk about hotfixes here. Version 126 is our current and is one of our, well, it is our last version. Uh, um, it was out in June of 2024, and it's supported through the end of the year. That time period is coming up really soon now, just 2 months from now. So we encourage you to go to our current version, 1.27, which was released in June of this year, and our plan to support that one through at least June of 2026. And version 128 is currently under development, and that's the one that's going to be compatible with DNN 10. So stay tuned here on this channel and watch your emails as well as we move into beta and then release of version 128 so that we can be compatible with DNN 10. So let's talk about hotfixes a little bit. I have a couple of systems here that I keep up to date. This one is a 1.26 system, and there are no hotfixes for it. We've not released any hotfixes since for 126 in the last month, so I don't think you'll see any hotfixes as well. Um, for I have another system here that's at a 1.27 release, and we've shown this before, but we're going, our old hotfixes uh, screen here is now marked as obsolete. Our old method was we would allow you to install hotfixes on a one-by-one basis, so you'd see lots of hotfixes and could install individual ones. We're trying for a more an easier approach, and so now we're releasing a stack of hot fixes, one per week. And so in this system, I last installed it at the end of September, and so we see all the cumulative hot fixes since then. I recommend that these are you can look through them and see what's included in each one, and if you click on the View Hotfixes button, you can see the individual hotfixes that are included in that. We're doing a lot of work to improve the product, and so I haven't got any of these that I'm ready to call out today. You might want to look through and verify. But in general, the safest course. If you need any hotfix, you can install that cumulative hotfix. Um, in general, though, installing the most current version is going to be your most successful course here. If you install just every hotfix, every cumulative hotfix includes all of the previous ones. So I can go to this most recent one on October 28th, and view and install that, and we'll get all of the previous hotfixes. And so I'm going to set that up to install. Just click install and say yes, and that will install all of them. I'm going to let that install in the background as we move on to other things. So I'm just going to slide that out of the way. And but that's the hot fixes that are available and that I would recommend that you install. We do another event every week. It's the Low-Code Campfire, and that's Fridays this same hour. And so I would encourage you to become part of that. It is a meeting format, meaning while you can sit and listen quietly, you're also welcome to participate directly. It's a great back and forth with our community. We learn more about what you're doing with our product and maybe deal with and solve problems that you're encountering as you're doing your low coding. On the uh, links for this episode here, let me click send if I can find it. Yes, I've put on the same slide on the chat window. This is where you can register in advance for the Low-Code Campfire. That link will take you there for that. And then you can getting to our webinar recordings, our community portal, and a shout out to the community portal. There's a lot of people in our community that will try to help you if you'll post something on the community portal. We answer those, but our community answers those as well. And I saw yesterday that there was a question that came in at my 7 p.m. and got answered slightly after midnight by a community member. So thanks to you for doing that. And we're getting lots of great answers on the community portal. So that's a good resource. And then you can give us feedback. There's a feedback form that you can tell us what you thought about this webinar and maybe things that you'd like to see in future webinars. The last link there is about drag and drop reordering in listings. That's a feature that we're going to touch on and explain, but we dealt with it in episode 58 of Low-Code Cafe. And if you want to know more information and learn how to do that, find the SQL code that's required for doing that. That's the place to do that. So we're not going to be able to get into that today, but we will talk about it a little bit. So with that, we'll go on to our hands-on low coding and discovering what's possible in listings. So what we're going to cover today, we'll do an overview of listings, just understanding listings in general, and then we'll go through and try out most of the settings that are available to you here in that module, just so you can understand, maybe see a feature that you haven't seen before, and get encouraged to explore a little bit. So from an overview perspective, listings has these four main pieces where you give it the data that you want it to report on, create a listing for, and that's you define a data source. Where's the data coming from? The data fields, what data you want to show. There's a buttons area where you can build ways for your users to interact with the listing. So item buttons lets you define actions that relate to one particular item on the listing. Root buttons are where you can define actions that impact, maybe do things that are more global in nature, but take action on the things that people are seeing on the screen. Views defines how how your data is being rendered, and so there's three different kinds of views. And then the settings, that's where we'll spend the most of our time today. So in taking a look at that, well, let's get started with it, I guess. In order to take a look at that, I am going to create an entity. And so I have our test system here, the Cafe 2025 system, and I'm going to create a new entity and call it metric or metrics. And I'm going to accept all of the defaults, except I'm going to put it on, we have put it on a page called Listing Settings, Cafe 191. So that's where it'll show up in our menu. And we're just going to have a very few properties. So we're going to have the name of the metric, and that will be our display property, a current value, and this will make this be a decimal number, a prior value, and all this is just a sample data that we're going to get to work with here today, and then a status, and that'll be a text property. So with that little bit of definition, and I'm going to make the status be searchable, filterable, sortable, because that's going to be useful in some of the things that we're doing. We'll make really everything be sortable, and but that'll get us started. So this entity, when we click Save, will get created in our menu. We'll go to the front of the website here and look under the demo, and we now see we have listings page, and we have our metrics page. So all that effort there was by creating an entity, it automatically creates the things that you need to interact with the entity. So we get a listing, and that's where we're going to be spending most of our time. But we'll create a couple of entries here. Just for test data. And this is all nonsense data. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm putting in here other than it's just data that we're going to be looking at. And yeah, I'm going to change that to, I meant 900, doesn't matter. So we have two values and two records total, and they're both in status new. It doesn't matter what the values are. It's just something that we can use to illustrate what you can do with listings. If we look at the metrics listing, which if you're on Page Builder, you can open it this way. If you're not using our Page Builder theme, you can use the Edit pencil and find it here, Manage Grid in full screen. I'm going to open that in a new tab so that we have both our listing and the administrative screen to listings in the same place. So as I mentioned earlier, we have these four sections: data, buttons, views, settings. In data, this is where you say where the data is coming from, and we're choosing to get it from a place called metrics. Um, that's the entity that was just created, so it automatically provides this access to all the fields for us. It's added the fields to the listing, so all these that are here and in the order that they're shown will correspond to the data that you see. But there's more fields that you could add, like create, date, and created by, and things like that. So this controls what data you get on the screen. We currently have some buttons that were defined for us automatically, the ability to edit an item or delete an item, and we see that here, rendered here. And then there's also the ability to add a new record or to export all the records, and those are root buttons that are added. One was here on the top, one was here on the bottom. So this was built for us automatically. The views controls how things get displayed, and by default, these are created with a data table view. That's this nice Excel type listing where you see records going down in the screen, but there's other views like cards and calendar if you want things to appear in a different way. And all that is beyond the scope of most of that, let's say, is going to be beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, because our focus is going to be on settings and all the different things that you can do in here. I'm going to rearrange this. Well, so let's see, go back to my presentation for a moment. So what we're going to be doing is this discovery, just trying to figure out all the different settings that are available. We'll click them on and show them and then move on to the next one. So this is going to be just a discovery based. And in order to do this and to keep from being too terribly confusing, I'm going to set up the screen with our administrative screen side by side with the listing. We'll make changes, we'll explore and experiment a little bit. So let me get the screen set up for that. We have this, our administrative screen, which I'm going to drop onto our left side, and then we have our listing itself, which I'm going to drop onto the right side. So now we can see side by side what these things, we can make changes on the left and see them on the right, and that's going to keep me from having to click back and forth and being a little bit confusing. So here we go. The first setting that's available in listings is show conditionally. And this is expecting either a true or a false value. Usually it's done by an expression of some sort. But if the value results in true, and I'm just going to type true as a constant here, the listing is going to show. If the value of true show conditionally is false, then when we refresh the screen, the listing doesn't show up at all. And so if you put an expression here, and there's lots of different kinds of expressions that are available to you, but for example, we can use a get show as the condition. So if the get command is a plant an app function that gets information off the query string, so if we use this get show equals yes condition, then we can go to our query string and say show equals no, and it won't show. Or any other value for that matter, and show equals y, and it will show. So any condition that's suitable for your business logic, you can use to either make a listing visible or not visible. The normal use case is this is left blank. You just want people to come to your page and to see your listing. But if you only want it to show up on certain conditions, then you can develop a true-false condition that will allow it to show, be hidden under certain circumstances. I'm going to remove that condition so that our listing goes back to being shown all the time. And so then this parameter that I added here doesn't make any difference one way or the other. The next setting is display title. It's a checkbox. And so if we uncheck the checkbox and refresh the listing, you'll see that the name, the metrics listing title here no longer shows in the bar. So that's an optional thing to show or not show, and you can turn it off. I'm going to take a minute and kind of focus on the other things that you can hide. The search bar, the search box, which lets you search for particular items out of your listing, can also be hidden. So that's the enable search box. And so if we turn off enable search, we'll see that the search goes away. There's another one that's enable filters. And if you uncheck that, the filters will go away. So if your goal is to try to minimize what's in the box, if you don't need filters, if you don't need a title or or search, you can minimize what appears up in this top area. And if you don't have buttons in the top area, it's going to be gone altogether. So for example, if I condition out this button so then now there's no longer a new button, that now that area just completely goes away. So this is useful. Lots of times your use case will be you want to show some data, but you don't want to, you don't need all to take up the real estate of that top level area, and you want to hide it, you can do it that way. All right, I'm going to take a minute and put things back the way they were. So we'll put back our new button on the top and turn back on displaying the title, the search, and the filters. These are the normal or default settings that you get when you do a listing. So I forgot to mention, if there's anyone that has any questions as we go along, you are welcome to put those on the chat, and I'll try to take a look at those. All right, moving on. Um, There is a display mode that controls how this listing is displayed, and the choices are that it's initially visible, and that's our normal use case. You want things to, you just want it to show up. But you can also change it to only show up either in a pop-up or manual, and that's kind of an interesting use case. So let's go with the manual one for a moment. As soon as you pick manual, it's going to show you some ways. If you're a JavaScript aficionado, it shows you the JavaScript that you can use to call this. It's show grid and high grid using the module ID as a parameter. But there's also a low-code way to do this. So if we put this in manual mode and click save, the listing is completely gone. It doesn't, I'm sorry, it does not show, and it will only show if we do either this JavaScript or we can do some low-code to make that happen. So now I'm going to take a brief detour and add a form to this page. Going to make it big to make it easy to work with. So we'll add a form to this page and we'll call it the control form. And I'm going to drop it there and manage it. So this will be the control form. And it's going to load very slowly here. And on our control form, I'm just going to add one button, which will be show listing. And if you look at the low-code actions on the on-click handler, let's see if we can find, there is a show listing and stop, or show listing and continue. I'm going to choose the stop variety. This button is just going to do this one thing. It's just going to show the listing, and the only choice we have to make is what module we're talking about for this action. So we're going to pick the metrics listing, and I'm not going to go any farther than that. So now when we go back to our page and get out of edit mode here, our listing isn't shown, but we have this control form, and if we click the button show listing, it appears. And so this display mode of manual has set it up so it doesn't display, and then you can use the low-code action to be able to display it. If we choose in pop-up as our choice and save, then the impact we get is the listing doesn't show, but when we click that exact same button, it pops up in a pop-up. So that gives you some idea of how you can control your listings to show. I'm going to go back to initially visible so that we can just see all of our impacts. The show listing button then doesn't do anything because it's already visible. Moving on to our next one, the row tooltip. Now I will point out that some of these are marked as legacy only. These, that is, that the reasoning behind why they're marked legacy only has to do with this old view that this old legacy view that was there, and these are all improperly marked, so that we're removing that term it'll come out as a hotfix here in version 1.27. So when you see these legacy only uh, items here, most of them are there improperly, and you don't have to worry about it. It's okay to use these settings, and they will remain available to you. So the next one is the enable row tooltip. And if you click that option on, you get a lot more settings. And so you have the ability to specify a title. So I'm going to put a title for a tooltip that's going to show up for this row. So this is, I'm going to say extra information is my title, and the tooltip is going to be row created on, and then I'm going to put the created date. So this is going to provide a row tooltip. I'm going to place the tooltip is going to, the box for the tooltip is going to appear to the left of the icon. We'll see this happen in a minute. It's going to be triggered by the tooltip data trigger is going to be you click on it, and I'm going to pick an icon. Actually, I'm going to leave this as the default for the moment because I believe this is a small bug, but we'll illustrate that in just a second. And then this icon position, this for the tooltip is going to appear on the right. And so we'll save that and refresh. And yes, this gets in. This is a small bug. I'll report it to our team, but glyph icon info sign is apparently an icon that we default to, but it's no longer part of what renders. So even though the tooltip is there, we're not seeing it. So I recommend that you pick some other icon like a info icon. Let's see, these are all alphabetical. Um, Info circle is a good one. And when we save that and refresh, you'll see now we get an info circle showing over here. And if we click on it, our title and the information that we added is all displayed. So you can see that the token that we put here, created date, is being rendered out of the row. And so this one was created and this is in UTC time, 12:45 after the hour, and this one was created at 12:31 after the hour. So we see our icons rendering here. Um, the icons are there, and if you click, the data is there. So kind of working on what can you do with this. If you the tooltip placement left says that the tooltip appears to the left of the icon when you click it. If we change the position of the icon to the left side and save, we now see the icon appearing. Uh, oh, and then that's interesting. It adapted automatically, so it's showing the placement because of what it was allowing. It's letting that show up. Um, it actually moved it to the right. So we can see some of these other settings. Let's see if we can see the impact if we do bottom as the tooltip placement. Nope. So it's um, well, I'll just make you aware you might see some difference in where this box appears. And if you're not getting it, if it's not showing up in a convenient place, you might try to manipulate the tooltip placement to get it to show up. There's a width in pixels, for example. If you want it to take up some extra space, you can put in a value like 500, and now the tooltip takes up a wider amount of space. So you have some control over height and width. There's also a tooltip data trigger. Right now we're clicking on the tooltip to make that come up, but if we change it to hover, what you'll see is as soon as I get to the eye without clicking, it pops up. And same thing here. So we're just seeing it appear and disappear. So you can think about use cases for this tooltip. You can't get all the information on the screen, but you want to have the information available. Tooltip is a way to do that. And you just turn on the row tooltip, all the tokens that are available from your data, like status and prior value and current value, are all available as tokens. All these other ones down here are also available as tokens, plus any other valid token. Um, and so you can do quite a lot with that. I'm going to switch gears here for a minute and say that one thing you should be aware of is that this tooltip content is evaluated and added to your listing at the time that the listing is rendered. So, for example, if daytime Unix, I'm going to display that as part of my tooltip. This is the number of seconds since I believe it's January of 1980. So we see this is something that ends in 925, and it's the same for every row ending in 925. And even if I wait a little while, it stays the same thing. So it was computed at the time that the listing was rendered. If I redo the listing, we can see now it says 948, 948. If I search for something and hover it, now we see it's rendered again. So the point is that if these tokens here were expensive to create, if they took 5 seconds to create, it could significantly slow down your listing, and yet um, most of the time, perhaps people aren't going to even view your tooltip. So be judicious about what you put in the tooltip content. It is possible with low code to do some things that are very costly in time, let's say, or CPU processing power. So this should be reserved for things that are pretty lightweight. Um, if we on a we'll chase a rabbit here for a moment. That's what we say in Texas. We could, if you really need to do something expensive, and another option to that might be a button that is, I'm going to call it row info, just to illustrate the point. We have a action that is the detail view, and if you create an action and put the same, it's got uh, you can put it in different places. I'm going to leave the default of right sidebar and oh, I'm sorry, I've chosen the wrong one. I want to do a custom detail view, not a detail view, because custom detail view is going to let me do the exact same thing as the other one. So I'm going to take that same row created uh, token and put it on a button that appears on the form, on the listing. So now when I refresh, we get a new button that says row info. And when I do it, I get that same information, but it's own every time I click it, I get something different. So this is ending in 86, and now it ends in 91. So the button gets and that custom detail view gets evaluated at the time the button is clicked, not when the row is rendered. So this would be a good choice for displaying things that are expensive. All right. So tooltip, row tooltip is very handy for displaying things. And I rarely see this. I haven't used this one in a long time. So that might be a tool that you could put into your toolbox. I'm going to turn that off. And so that'll go away. I'm also going to turn off that button. We don't need uh, that row info button anymore. It's easy to hide that with just putting in a false value here. And so it will no longer render. So keeps things clean as we move on. So the next one we're going to look at is message for empty grid. If we search for something that doesn't exist, we get a no data. And that's the default that we provide here in this box. Um, if we change that to some other value, like nothing to see here, and now we see that. So you can customize the node data to show what you want, and it's very easy to do. Um, and so that maybe you can make it be more relevant to the thing to your use case. So saying no data, you can say no invoices or something like that. Um, let's go back to viewing the default here, viewing all of our records. We move on to the next one, which is hide empty grid. And this is by default, this is unchecked, but if you check it, then when there's no data in the grid, it just goes away. And you can see this by that example. Just typing searching for something that doesn't exist, it just disappears, which is kind of an unusual use case for it. Um, I'm going to go back to our browse back to the page so it displays. But another reason that might happen, and probably the more common use case, is that if your data source maybe has a filter on it saying, for example, where ID equals 9999, but some kind of condition on your where clause that gets rid of all the records, then the result of that is that the listing just doesn't show at all. So this would be the use case where you have the filtering says I want to only show active invoices, and then there are no active invoices, so the listing just doesn't show at all. It saves that screen real estate or doesn't show the listing at all because of the condition. The versus if we didn't have hide empty grid turned on, the listing would show but would be empty. So another easy way to control, gain some control over how you uh, display a listing. I'm going to remove that where clause so that we can go back to showing all of our normal records and keep working on our settings. Um, we've already talked about enable search. There's another setting called exact search. Before I enact that, let's take a look at the kinds of things that you can do with search. If I say HI, I see highest value showing up. But if I also say high val, uh, exact search um, prevents that from showing up because high val doesn't exist. If I say highest value, it does show up. So if you want search to be precise, this exact search setting turned on forces it to be precise. If we turn that off and save, we get a different result out of our searching. So now if we type high val, it still filters, but it filters according to uh, both parts of what I've typed, and even though there's some characters omitted. So that gives you a nice ability to expand the way it searches. And so your use case might call for allowing for a flexible search. That would help you. Um, so we're setting it back to our default here. We'll just make sure that uh, we have a good starting spot, and we'll move on to show data on search parameter. And this is where it's only going to display information if there's a search taking place. So if we turn this one on, the listing now shows up, and it has this setting, search to show results is what it says. So when you start typing, that's when the search takes place. When there's no search having been done, you get a reminder that you should search in order to show the results. So this is kind of for the use case that you only want to show things after they've searched. And one of the reasons for that might be well, perhaps the search is expensive. If you're searching through a 100,000 record database and maybe the thing you're searching for isn't indexed, that might take 10 seconds to accomplish. And so rather than, and it's a $100,000 record database, without this setting, it's going to render the first page of that, meaning it has to go and do a search. It has to go query the database. And so it might take 10 seconds to pull out a listing that maybe nobody's going to do anything with. But so by turning on show data on search, it no longer it doesn't do the search to initialize the listing until somebody searches for something, and that's when you pay the cost. So this gives the ability, um, you as a low-code developer, you can take advantage of this. The page ends up being faster to load because it doesn't do the search, and then if a user interacts with it, that's when they get the data. So I'm going to turn that setting off. We'll go back to the normal default behavior where it does the search all the time. Um, the next setting is called search placeholder, and notice that the box here says search when it's empty. Um, if you change the search placeholder to something else, in this case I've changed it to invoice number, then the search box changes. And so this is just a nice way to customize your search box. The search delay is an interesting parameter, and it's another one of these trying to help uh, with the cost of searching. So if I change the search delay to 3000, which is the maximum value that we support, and refresh the listing, then when I start typing, the search doesn't take place until 3 seconds go by before and I'm no longer type any more characters. So if I type an L and then an O and then wait 3 seconds, the search takes place. It adds a little bit of buffer between when the user is typing and when the search takes place, and that can help you in a very expensive search, 100,000 record search again, that the user can type in a full invoice number. If you slow down the search delay, it gives them a chance to do that before it actually goes off and asks the server for the records. And so yeah, I changed that, and now 3 seconds go by before it does the search again. If I go back to our default value of 300, then as soon as I'm typing a character, a search goes on. And so now every character, almost every character that I type, unless I'm a very fast typist, is causing a search out in the database, and that uh, causes that has a cost implication. So it's either taking a long time for this listing to load, or as people are searching, they're adding a CPU um, cost to the server, and so the more users that you have, maybe it's slowing you down. So this is a performance setting. You should set it according to what your needs are. I somehow earlier turned off enable filters. That's a default setting, and I'll turn it back on now. Um, and so now we see our filters show up again. I didn't get that one turned on. Sync with URL is our next setting. Um, and what this does, and maybe it's easier to see if I go big here for a second. Um, as I type here in the search, you'll see that the search shows up whatever I'm doing. The query string includes that. And the nice piece about that is that if you share that search URL with somebody else, maybe you put it in an email or put it in a bookmark, that the fact that search high appears in the query string means that the listing comes in filtered when the page loads. So turning on search sync with URL causes that to happen automatically. The um, uh, the filters also show up there, but I've managed to define this one wrong, and I'm going to fix it. Um, so I'm going to go back to our metrics and edit. I managed to get the wrong one checked here. I made prior value filterable, but I really meant to make status filterable. So I'm going to change that setting on my listing and merge those changes in. Um, so now refreshing the screen. There we go. That's the one I intended. So we have status, and status new is available now. That's the status of whatever statuses are present in the data. That's what statuses are available in the dropdown. And when we have sync with URL and we pick one of these, it appears as a filter up in the query string. And so again, this query string could be used to share or to bookmark. If I pick multiple statuses, you'll see the line just begin to grow. And so now we've got two statuses going on. I turn all that off. We go back to our the query string modifies. Um, so that's the sync with URL parameter. If I turn that one off, then, and again, sorry for going big and small here, but I want to illustrate. If we turn that off, filtering uh, was right. I I just illustrated one of the problems that you can have with low code. I made a change on entities, which made a change to our admin screen here, and yet I didn't refresh. I had basically this admin screen being impacted at two places at once, and so I lost my change here. So let's turn filterable off here and turn it on here. Uh, and I've enabled another small bug. I've enabled this in the entity, but um, I sometimes when you change things in the entity, it doesn't show up in the listing until you make some small change to the data source, which is what I'm doing now. Anyway, we'll get this filterable back the way it's supposed to be. And Unfortunately, I've made it a little bit confused, so I am going to, I guess I'm just going to skip that for now, that particular setting. Sorry for that. I want to make the best use of our remaining 10 minutes here, remaining few minutes. Um, so let's talk a little bit more about this sync with URL. When you click sync with URL, there's also another choice that is the query string prefix. And this is a prefix that you can add that helps differentiate between multiple listings on a page, or just have influence over your query string as a whole. So having turned that on, if I now say, I'm going to start out with an empty query string. If I now search for something, notice the search parameter now says metric search is low. Or if I had a filter, it would say it would put the prefix of metric on the front of that filter as well. This is useful as you're thinking about if you have multiple listings on the same page and they're both set to sync with URL. They're both watching that URL. And so uh, if you happen to have um, this is a nice way by saying the query string prefix for one of them is metric and the other one is the other listing has a query string prefix of invoice that um, it prevents the two listings from talking to each other. So then when you do a search on one, it doesn't impact the other, or a filter on one, it doesn't impact the other. Um, so if you're putting multiple listings on a page and you don't want them to interact, the query string prefix is recommended, and you should put one there to differentiate. Sometimes you do want them to talk, that you want a search that happens on one to impact the other as well. It's an interesting use case, and so you can just simply leave that blank, and the search, if you search for an invoice on one listing, all the other listings will react to that at the same time. So it's kind of interesting. The next setting is lock into edit mode, which we don't have time to talk about edit mode today, so I'm going to skip that one. I'll just talk about, but not demonstrate, the next setting, which is include font awesome. Font awesome is the mechanism that provided those icons that we had for the tooltip and for these icons as well. And so if you're not using Font Awesome in your particular scenario, you can turn off this setting and that'll just keep it from being loaded on the page. It makes the page slightly lighter, but on or off, it's almost certainly going to work anyway. But if you're not using it, you can turn it off. I haven't used debug mode. And so I'm not going to talk about it other than to say it says that it will, if you turn on the debug mode setting, it's going to log extra information in a particular folder on the system. So if you're having troubles, you might consider turning on debug mode and then examining what's in the log to see if it explains why. I've covered root CSS classes in a different setting on a low-code cafe, and we're not going to take the time to talk about that today, other than to say if you put something here, whatever you put here will be included as a CSS class within the HTML that generates the listing. So if you know what to do with CSS, you can put your own class here and then, or multiple classes, that'll be on the listing and it will give you something to work with to style, for example, changing the color of your listing as a whole. Another little used setting is refresh when a modal / pop-up is closed. So by default, the setting is off, and this one is rarely used. But if you choose it. By enabling it, then if your listing opens up a pop-up, that when that pop-up closes, the listing refreshes automatically. That can be useful, for example, if you've got um, if you have a button that does a pop-up and then you click update or change, that when it closes, this data would get updated automatically. So that would keep your listing up to date with changes that were made in a pop-up. I think our actions actually have a refresh action that tells the listing to update. So this does the exact same thing. In the few minutes that are left, I'm going to just talk about the things that are down here in these advanced settings. We won't be getting into them. So the advanced UI settings allows you to put a header or add some JavaScript to the page. Um, Add some JavaScript that happens. One is init, so when the page initializes, when the listing initializes, or when the data source changes, both of those things can run some JavaScript for you. So if you want to do some things that we're not doing, you can add some JavaScript. I forgot to mention we are winding down on our hour, so if you have questions, now would be a great time to add them. There's a setting here called Embed, and if you check the Embed box and save, this gives the ability and it gives you the code to do it as well. Some script that you can put in another place on your site or even other sites that will show that listing in that remote setting. So if you embed, and I've done, and remember to save. Don't just get the script and assume it's going to work. You actually have to hit save in order to get embed enabled. I've made that mistake more than once, but it's a way to display your listing elsewhere on another page or on another site. If you use our tabs product, you can force the listing to update at different times, and so these integration settings are useful when you're using tabs. Take a look at them. I gave you the link to the drag and drop earlier on the clipboard, and drag and drop is a neat feature where you get some handles here to the left of. And actually, I can activate it and show you what it looks like when it's turned on. It gives you the handles to be able to move things around visually on the screen. But there's another component to it. You need to add some actions here so that to make these sticky. These don't actually change any data. It just visually changes the screen and gives you the handles that you need to be able to run some code to be able to uh, do something with whatever the user has interacted with. So when a user picks up an item and drags it from one place to another, you get that as an event that you can do something with. So the practical use of that is in the link that I showed you in the Low-Code Café. The last one here on the settings page is the JavaScript APIs. And again, this is not legacy only. These give you the API calls, the JavaScript calls that you need to be able to, if you're doing JavaScript, to interact with your listing. And so showing it, hiding it, popping it up, clearing it, lots of functionality that's there that are easy reminders, but they don't do anything. These are just documentation and reminders. All right. So we've hit everything on the settings screen, or almost everything, and that's our hour. If you have any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, love to hear from you what you'd like to see next time. If you want to dig into listings even further, we could do that as well. But um, if there are no questions, we will call it there. So I'll just thank you for attending this episode of the Low-Code Café. Hope that you found a tip or a trick or something that you haven't used before that'll be useful in your applications. And with that, enjoy. We will see you at. Please do and come to us to the next one on in November, or engage with us on the Low-Code Campfire. Thanks all.